Good morning, everyone, and welcome, and thank you for attending today's event. My name is Todd Hack. I'm the chairman of the UAF Coffee Club group, and welcome to Brewing Brilliance. So this event is brought to you today by the MEMA Mix Networking Group and the University Aftermarket Foundation Coffee Club. So this is an exciting day. I've had the personal pleasure to know John, Larry, and Bill over my entire career, and these three gentlemen are truly goats of our industry. Not only what they've achieved professionally and their impact on the aftermarket, but also what they've given back to the industry. So I'm proud to tell you that all three of them have had a direct impact on my career and on many in the aftermarket. So we're fortunate they could be with us today, and we thank them for volunteering their time. I think this will be a great event. We also want to acknowledge the help from Mix, MEMA, and UAF in putting together this unique event, specifically Nikki Rankin, Jennifer Teo, Ryan Devine, and Paul McCarthy. So if you didn't know, today is National Coffee Day, so we felt this was an excellent day to host this event and bring awareness to the UAF Coffee Club. And we hope this can become an annual event. So as you can see on the screen, this year, the UAF has funded educational grants and has awarded 378 scholarships to students, totaling $640,250 for this current school year. Now, those awarded with scholarships will be attending either a 2- or 4-year college or university, or an accredited automotive vocational program. While many of the students are studying to become mechanical, collision, or heavy-duty repair professionals, many others are pursuing degrees such as business, finance, engineering, IT, cybersecurity that can lead to a great career in the automotive aftermarket. Now, we're very fortunate the UAF is supported by many major supporters: distributors, program groups, families, and manufacturers alike, many who are lifetime trustees. It's truly a place where the entire industry comes together to support education. But now the UAF Coffee Club was designed for the rest of us to participate on an individual level. So most of the participants in the Coffee Club are individual contributors, many like you and me, who can donate through an easy monthly process and give back to this great industry to help build a pipeline of future leaders who will take the aftermarket into the future. So today we have 12 barista corporate supporters and over 250 individual contributors who donate each month to Coffee Club. But with 250 people, we're just scratching the surface. So the concept is very simple. For what you'd spend for a cup of coffee on a month, a weekly, or daily basis, you can donate to Coffee Club. So giving back and helping future young people afford the higher cost of schooling is a great feeling, but most importantly, we need clear avenues to bring great people to our industry. And as my friend Bill Mag said when he was chairman of AWDA, quote, "Our industry is a great place to work." And for all of us who've made our careers in the aftermarket, Bill was absolutely right. So we hope you enjoyed today's event, and please check out the UAF website and text the word coffee to 53333 to join the Coffee Club, or text to level up to 53555 to increase your level of support. So don't forget, your donations are tax deductible, and you are truly making a difference in the future of the aftermarket for just the cost of a cup of coffee. And if you can, please join us at Apex. We'll be hosting a Coffee Club event on Wednesday morning, starting at 8:30, right outside the show entrance, and I hope to see you all there. So with that, I'd like to get today's event started and turn this over to Ryan.
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Ryan Devine. I'm the current chairman of the Mix Council. I want to thank everyone for joining us on Coffee Day. Hopefully you guys have a cup in front of you. One of the goals of today is to kind of demonstrate how the UAF impacts a lot of our younger individuals. And I want to introduce a couple recent UAF scholarship recipients. They're both Northwood Aftermarket grads as well. So we have Cade Nelson joining us from Dayton Parts. He's doing product management there. And also Elisse Richardson, who recently joined the aftermarket sales team at Tenneco. Thanks for joining today, guys. What we want to do now is take you through about a 10-minute video that just kind of talks through, how has this impacted them? How has it made their careers, get kicked off in the great way? So let's move to the video. Thanks.
Thanks for joining today. I think it's going to be a great discussion. I know that both of you guys have, been involved in the industry for probably about 4 years now. Northrop graduates recently, I guess. Also, you guys have received some scholarships from the UAF which is really exciting. And kind of what I want to talk about today is, how did this journey get you here? And how do these scholarships help yourselves and others, kind of get to where you are today? So let's start with a question. We'll start with Elisse. So tell me, why did you want to join the aftermarket industry?
It was an accident. So Northwood requires you to declare a major when you first start, which is unlike most colleges. And my dad is in the industry, has been for kicking 40 years now. And I saw Automotive Aftermarket on the list, so I picked it. And it was the best decision I think I could have made.
Awesome. Okay, what about you? Why did you join the industry?
Honestly, when I began, searching for universities, Northwood was already on my mind. Through some high school groups, I had learned about the school, and actually, I had met you, Ryan, and you had kind of told me about your experience going through the aftermarket program, where you are now. So when it came to the time, like Elisse mentioned, declaring a major, I knew it would be a great path for me. The relationships that we kind of talked about that you can make within the industry is something that really excited me. So I thought I'd give it a shot.
That's great. So tell me, I'm sure you guys had a lot of very interesting internships. Elisse, can you tell me about some of the ones you've had earlier on in your career?
Yeah, I've had kind of a wide experience in the aftermarket. I've kind of done it all. I started at a retailer. I started at Advanced Auto Parts, and that was summer 2020, so all virtual, but it was a really cool experience to see how the retailers work and kind of how they interact with the rest of the industry. I had an internship with MEMA, which I really enjoyed. So getting to see kind of all the corners of the industry and how all the players come together and build off of each other, I think was my favorite experience going through my internships that I've done.
That's awesome. Cade, what about yourself? What kind of internships did you get?
Yeah, so actually my first internship was with Penske Dealer Group. So a little outside the aftermarket, but again, goes to show the kind of opportunities you have at Northwood and with the time we're given when granted these scholarships. Now, in terms of the aftermarket, my first internship was with the product team at Epicor. And they were a great group. It was their first time having interns and my first internship in the industry. And I learned a ton. And then the one that led into my job now was with Dorman. And I got to know them through Auto Show, which led into my internship starting when they were still Dorman HD Solutions. And now I work for Dayton Parts. So it's been a great experience, and I've learned so much from all of my internships.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So as you guys are going through school, I'm sure you had a lot of industry engagement. Can you tell me about some of the shows that you guys went to, how that impacted you? Elisse, we'll start with you.
Cade and I went our first one together to HDAW in January of 2020. So having that be our first industry experience was fantastic. It's a very intimate part of the industry, and you get to see a real bona fide show. From there, we've had opportunities to go to performance racing industry in Indianapolis, AASA Vision Conference, Technology Conference, and we went to Apex SEMA last fall.
That's fantastic. Cade, any additional comments there?
Yeah, real quick, when Elisse mentioned that HDAW in 2020 was the first show we both attended, the very beginning of our second semester of our freshman year. And let me tell you, that was a big shock, but in a good way. We had just taken our Aftermarket 101 class in Northwood, and being able to see that in action, just a few months later, I think it really solidified that we made the correct choice.
Yeah. So, Cade, I know you've been a beneficiary of some of the scholarships offered through the UAF. Can you tell me about how some of those scholarships impacted your educational experience?
Right. I mean, some of the things we've already spoken about. I mean, the scholarships that I've received from UAF throughout multiple years at Northwood led me to be able to go to these shows. It's given me the time to not have to worry about how am I going to necessarily pay for school, and more time to focus on getting ready for my career, going to be able to have the time to go to HJW, Apex, SEMA, PRI, like Elisse had mentioned. And not only that, but to take advantage of leadership opportunities and clubs on campus. And all of that combined is why students looking to go into the industry. That's why they go to Northwood. That's why they attend the schools that they do. is for those opportunities. And without that scholarship, I don't think I would have had that.
Great. Now, Elise, can you tell me about how some of these scholarships shaped your career path, your career prospects?
So once I started getting more invested in the industry with internships, and I started applying for these scholarships every year, the more I got to know the industry, the more I got to understand that the University Aftermarket Foundation is an important part of it. So when I was a beneficiary of the scholarships, like Cade said, I could spend a lot more time focusing on learning about the industry, doing internships, going to shows, and I wouldn't have to go back to my high school job over the summer to help me pay for next semester. So it really helped me feel like I'm more involved in the industry and supported by the industry, and kind of made me more excited to invest my time back into the industry as well.
Great. Now, Cade, when you were in school, what kind of career goals did you have, and how has that evolved?
Now, I think I wanted to find somewhere that really valued continuous learning. And I think going to these shows, HTW, Apex, SEMA, groups like Mix, that allow you to not only continue to learn in the industry, but learn from other people that maybe you work for a supplier and you're learning and working with a distributor, talking to different people at these shows. And I really wanted to find a company that valued that. I think I did here at Dayton Parts, but I know I met tons of companies that had that to offer while I was looking throughout my career.
So, Elise, what was your career goal, and how has it evolved since you've joined the workforce here?
I haven't joined it yet. I start next week as we're
Wow,
recording this. Yeah,
congratulations.
thanks. Really close. But so funny enough, when I was a junior at Northwood, I got to get a personal relationship with Bill Long when he was given his Outstanding Business Leader Award, and to talk to Bill and really dig deep on his career and how he spends his time now, being kind of, you know, a big guy in the industry. It's really cool how much time he spends giving back and mentoring and, you know, investing in things like Cade mentioned, Mix, where it's these industry leaders giving back. So I think that's really important to me, is to give back to others in the industry, because if it weren't for people giving back to people like Cade and I, whether it's through these scholarships or, you know, just taking a half hour when we call you and have questions like that, you know, we wouldn't be where we are right now. So that's a big goal for me, is to give back in any way that I can.
Okay, what advice would you give to someone that's interested in these scholarships and wants to join the industry?
I would say not only for the UAF scholarships, but any scholarships in general, do not wait until the deadline to apply. It gives you plenty of time to make sure you have all the transcripts you might need, any letters of recommendation. And I would say that is probably the biggest thing I'd have to say. A lot of times, those that are considering you for that scholarship often look to see who submits it first, and how committed you are to really continuing your career path.
Elise, any advice you give to recipients as well, people that are interested?
I would echo the same. Don't wait till the last minute. And also remember that the folks that are reading this are real people, some of whom have been in your shoes. So you can really get personal and really talk, you know, treat it as if it's a conversation and you're really talking to someone, and they can get to know you better, and really invest in spending a lot of time in that application, because, you know, it could turn into benefit to you. So it's a really good application. It sends it out to a lot of different places. So you're really getting bang for your buck when you're sitting down and filling out one instead of 30.
That's awesome. So I guess let's talk a little bit about personal growth. Can you kind of talk about how these scholarships helped you grow personally to become who you want to be? Okay, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so I mentioned before, leadership opportunities on campus. I would not have had those, the time to commit myself to that had it not been for these scholarships. And from that, I learned so much how to manage other people. I learned how to work with people. Sometimes it's not always easy. And I'm glad I learned that while in school and not learning it right now. I feel like I have a step ahead because of these scholarships.
Elise, what about you?
Yeah, I think just being able to spend more time focusing on that on-campus experience rather than, you know, being a student and working full-time or even part-time, getting to spend that time on campus and do things like auto show. You know, when I was aftermarket chair, I was really doing some real world stuff there, even though it was an on-campus event. And, you know, that experience, I think, really, really matured me. And some people might not believe me, but I used to be an introvert in high school, did not do extracurriculars. That wasn't me. And Northwood really helped me get out of my shell and push myself to, you know, find something that I really, truly love.
Fantastic. So here's the most important question of the day. Are you guys giving back to the coffee club yet? And if not, are you going to?
Definitely. As I get settled in my career, I really look forward to giving back to the coffee club, getting more involved with Mix. Right now, currently taking most of my time still helping out the aftermarket club at Northwood and settling into my job and life here out in Pennsylvania.
Awesome. What about you, Elise?
I've been a donor for about a year now. When I was at Vision a year ago, it was just really easy to sign up. They had like a QR code on a poster board and it was insert your PayPal and there you go. And I never really thought about giving back while I was still a student, but it was important to me because I would harp on our friends who are aftermarket majors, you know, get this turned in, and hopefully get a scholarship out of it. And to be someone to potentially help one of my friends get through college, that's important to me, and I'm really happy that I started.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your support. I know all the future recipients will be very appreciative. That's all the questions I have. Thank you guys for joining today. I know you're off to a start. You start your first big time job in a week. That's great. Cade, you're getting into Dayton. So I look forward to watching your guys' careers blossom. So thanks for joining us today.
Yeah,
Thanks
thanks
for
for having us, Brian.
Well, thank you, everyone. I want to give a special thanks to the Mix Council for kind of supporting this event today. There's been a lot of hard work behind the scenes at MEMA to pull this together. Special thanks to Nikki Rankin for helping to do this. For those that don't know about Mix, really what it's intended to be is a group of younger people tackling aftermarket issues that we all face, kind of like a think tank. And we really aim to reverse mentor executives. So if you have a high potential candidate in your organization, this is a great council for them to be a part of. It's been great for me. So really hope you guys can get involved with that. So at this point, let's get ready for the main event here. I want to introduce Paul McCarthy, who's going to moderate the Clash of the Titans here. So Paul, take it away. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Ryan and Todd. I think as Todd said, and Ryan, and especially our scholarship recipients, a couple of those, showed this is truly for a great cause. It's one I encourage you to consider. It's one I am passionate about. I'm really proud to have been part of the team that started the UAF Coffee Club. And thanks to Mix, all these future leaders in the supplier industry for coming up with this brilliant concept. Let's learn from the GOATs and have them inspire us to give back to our industry. And the folks we have with us today are truly industry GOATs. So we have Larry Pavey, head of the group, which of course is historically aligned all the automotive aftermarket buying groups. And talking about his bio, it's hard to know where to start. He spent his entire career in the aftermarket. He started in high school working at a jobber. He worked at Walker, at Eklund, where of course he was president of Eklund North America. He had the whole aftermarket business. And then he was a president at Dana and had their multi-billion-dollar global under vehicle business. He then, of course, as we all know, returned to the distribution side, leading Federated. And I should also note he's a vice chair at the University of the Aftermarket Foundation. We have John Washbish, president and CEO of the Aftermarket Auto Parts Alliance. Before that, he was president at Affinia, a leader at Eklund. He grew up in a distribution family. Among the way too many awards and industry service to name, I will also call out senior vice chair of the UAF. I think everybody knows John. There may be nobody with a stronger bark. There's also nobody in our industry who's nicer or a better friend. And I can guarantee you there's nobody who cares more about our industry and the future of the people in it. And then Bill Long. Bill is president and CEO of MEMA. He spent over 40 years in our industry, 25 years at Eklund and Dana, including leading the engine management group. He headed Brilliance North America. He also spent time in something we all envy, the motorsports side, where he was a top executive in both NASCAR and IndyCar. So, gentlemen, GOATs, thank you for joining us. We are blessed to have some true GOATs of our industry with us. And I would mention to all of you on the call, you are blessed to have the opportunity to ask them questions. We have some great starter questions from Mix, but please put yours in the Q&A. So let's kick things off. Let's talk about your career journey. What are some highlights from your career path that contributed to your success in our great aftermarket industry? And maybe share a key challenge you faced along the way and how you overcame it. So, Larry, I'm going to pick on you to start.
Well, thanks, Paul, and thanks for the opportunity to be here. You know, being an old goat, I'm not sure is the compliment, but
Do I need
at
to
any rate,
clarify? GOAT means greatest of all time,
yeah.
not.
But obviously, I also want to say thanks to everybody that supports the University Aftermarket Foundation and the Coffee Club. This is it is a great way to kind of give back, and for some of us that have been very fortunate and blessed to have the opportunities that we've had to be able to pass that along to others, I think is really important. So, you know, I would say, you know, when you talk about career journeys, mine was maybe the opposite of Elisse, who was talked about kind of it was an accident. It seems like I kind of grew up from the time I could remember around my grandfather's farm, where we were always working on tractors and other things. And then my uncle had a Sinclair station, and so filling the pop machine and washing windshields. And then my father had a shop where he worked on tractors and lawn equipment and chainsaws. And so I feel like I was washing parts from about the time I was 5 years old with my hands in gasoline and brushes and all the way up. So it was almost somewhat preordained, but really the thing that happened to me was I was fortunate enough that people would give me a chance, and that's what everybody needs in life, is an opportunity, a chance to do something. And so along the way, I had a number of people that helped me and gave me a great, kind of a leg up, if you will. And so, I look back on just how fortunate I was to have, people that were willing to take a chance on me, give me an opportunity, teach me, even though I was a hard learner, hard to teach at some points. But anyhow, it was very fortunate. And yeah, from starting with, my first paycheck was for a delivery truck driver, and lots of opportunities to learn everything on the way up. So it was great. And again, just appreciate the opportunity to be here today.
Well, thanks, Larry. John, let me go to you next. What on this career path? How do you get to be this incredible success?
Well, I owe everything to my parents and the family business. I mean, I was born into the business, Paul. My grandfather on my mother's side had a leaf spring shop in Louisville, Kentucky. They went back before automobiles, and they made springs for the trolley cars. And they were at 15th and Broadway, and that's where the trolley car line ended. And we even had a stable where the horses would stay while we had the blacksmith shop, not only shoeing the horses, but fixing the leaf springs. So in 1957, my dad left the liquor business in Florida, moved to Kentucky, and we got involved with the family business. So I think it was about 1960, we started doing paperwork at home. And so Dad would bring home the invoices, and as an early guy, we had a file sorter, and he'd put everything in alphabetical order. By the time I was 10, I was pricing invoices on Saturday. That was just part of the game, part of the family business. I was fortunate to be in it. And I'm excited about the University Aftermarket Foundation and education, because it was my education that changed my life. Like a lot of kids that grew up in the business, you could have stayed at home, gone to University of Kentucky, taken fast women and lots of liquor, because that's the main degree there. But through this company called Wicks Filters, at the time the Guard Corporation, they found this little place called Northwood Institute that had this automotive aftermarket program. And so I won a scholarship. And with a family with 6 kids and a struggling small WD, we didn't have much money for tuition. I was number one. So I took the scholarship to Northwood. And after I got my associate degree in automotive aftermarket management, decided to get my bachelor's. And at the end of that, my dad and I had a chat and said, rather than coming home to the family business right away, why don't you work for a supplier for a few years? Let's learn more about them. And then when you come home, we can skin them better. And that made great sense. But then the real task was, Paul, after I graduated, getting somebody to hire me, because nobody would. None of the big vendors were interested. I mean, I interviewed with the Monroe guys. Dad was one of their customers. It was too risky. You hire a customer's son, if he turns out to be a flop, how do we fire him? You know, and I mean, of course, the Monroe guys, they were at least honest about it, Larry. In those days, if you weren't 6 foot, they wouldn't even interview you. I mean, that was their game in 1975. You had certain physical requirements you had to meet. So I couldn't get a job with any major supplier, but I had a great guy, and his son's still in the business, by the name of Doc Nyhart. His son, Jack Nyhart, owns a company called PTC. He's a first-class guy. And his dad hired me. And he knew my dad, knew what was up. And he said, I need a guy for like 2 years. And if you want to do it, I'll take it. And believe it or not, the first job was in San Antonio, Texas. So that gave me a chance to start on the factory side. And as my mother said, as the years went on, the game changed. Rather than them going to a show, and they were my parents, the game changed, and they'd go to the show, and I was their son. And so it was fortunate for me to get over here on the supplier side. You know, without suppliers, we can't do anything. And I always knew that on Dad's side. I remember in the early days, him begging people, please sell me. So the collaboration and the cooperation, Paul, that we've got to have together is paramount to us both being successful. So as a kid growing up, what attracted me about the business, I remember when Dad had come home, every day we'd ask the question, how many cars and trucks did you fix today? Because we had a big shop that fixed cars and trucks. And we knew that we were keeping America going. And if we fix more cars and trucks today than we did yesterday, we must be doing a good job.
Hear, hear. Well, that's a great industry story. And by the way, one thing that's changed is all I hear from current Northwood grads is just the challenge of picking between all the job offers they get. But
well, that was true for the other graduates. I mean, nobody else had a problem except if you were a WD side, you know, looking for a factory job. They looked at you like you were crazy. Now, maybe some of my problem was Monroe sent me and another student to Belgium for a 6 month training program when I was a sophomore. I don't know a lot about shocks or what that plant was about, but I can give you a big repertoire about Belgian chocolate and Belgian beer. I mean, I got that down really good. I thought we had done a great job, and we must have done such a great job that Monroe never took any students back again.
Sounds like there might have been a lesson for them in there.
Who knows?
Bill, let me go to you on the career journey question. What's some highlights that took you to a CEO job? What's the challenge you overcame on that career journey?
Well, there's kind of a similar story here. Listening to John and Larry, my dad spent 25 years as a NASCAR official. So at age 4, I was hanging around racetracks all through New England and things, and garage areas and pit areas and things 2 or 3 times a week. My mom had worked for what she referred to as the Buick, which was a dealership in Springfield, Massachusetts that she worked for. My uncle owned a salvage yard. And, you know, by the time I could take the training wheels off my bike, I think I was fixing everybody else's bike in the neighborhood. So at age 12, I rebuilt my first engine, a 1962 Oldsmobile F85, aluminum block, cast iron heads. It was, I'm not sure it ran when I rebuilt it, but my journey in the automotive aftermarket almost ended. I took a summer job with a Napa Auto Parts store in Springfield, Agawam, Massachusetts, actually. as a delivery driver, and probably much like John and Larry kind of learned the business from the ground up. But again, that journey almost ended when I crashed the boss's delivery vehicle, taking parts to, actually it was his personal station wagon, just to be clear. But you know, as Larry mentioned, I know John attests to, we have been very fortunate in our careers. All three of us work for a company called Eklund, which you mentioned, and you know, a couple of reference points. When I joined Eklund, Eklund was a $150 million company. And when Larry and John and I left Eklund, it was a $3.2 billion aftermarket company. And not that I had a lot to do with that growth, but I think the other two goats will agree that we got to play with things that we had no business touching. I know that certainly was true for me, and I can give a number of examples of Chairman Fred Manchesky saying, you know, I want you to go down and do some due diligence on this company. And what the heck am I doing? I can't spell due diligence, but having the opportunity to participate and really be thrown into the deep end along the way has been really rewarding. And I think for young people, and particularly for Northwood, or anybody interested in this industry, is take advantage of the full advantage of every opportunity you get to touch. Don't be afraid to jump in and participate and put your fingerprints on whatever the task is that you've been given.
Well, I think that's great advice, Bill. And let's build on that. I mean, there's nothing like our entrepreneurial aftermarket. But the goal of having you guys here is how can we be like you? How can we steal your genius? So what advice would you give to young individuals aspiring to make a meaningful impact in our industry? What do you believe is critical to success? And John, do you want to I saw you take off mute. Why don't you start us?
Well, I mean, I think the first thing is what a lot of young people need to do is the best way to promote themselves is to say to their boss, what do you need me to do? What do you want me to do for you? Where do you need me to go? I have another son that's not in our industry. He's in another industry, and he's been promoted. He was a military guy, and he's moving through the ranks. And recently, a sales position came open, and there were two territories, one in Tampa, the other one's Minneapolis. And you know what everybody's thinking, right? You know what everybody's thinking. They're going to choose Tampa. So my son says, what's your advice, Dad? My advice is you go to your boss and say, where do you need me the most? And he did. And he got Tampa. So, you know, everybody else said, give me Tampa. So I think for a lot of young people, they're really worried about themselves and how do I do better? Okay. How can you help your boss? What do you need me to do? And so that's, for me, that's how can I help you, boss? How can I package it? How can I deliver it? What do you need me to do? And then, Paul, you've heard me say this before with all young people. When you come to the boss and you've got an idea and whatever your game plan is, have you done some mathematics here too? What's this mean? Is there an investment? Is there a change? Just people that come in with ideas. Hey, let's do this. You know, we got too much going on. I mean, there's always the time for the let's do this. But if you're going to bring your boss one, let's have some numbers behind it.
All right, great advice. Larry, Bill gave us a piece of advice, so I'll have him go last on this one. What would your advice be to young leaders who want to be you 20 years from now on this call? A goat.
Well, probably my first advice is that might not be a great goal, but certainly I think, you know, from a standpoint of, and I think what Bill talked about to some extent, John also, like, you know, be willing to do the work, be willing to do whatever it takes. I think that's the business has changed. My first 6 years with Walker, they moved me 5 times. They were trying to make sure that I was committed. That was a different day. But as John said, it was all about, you know, how dedicated are you? How committed are you to to the cause. And maybe that's a little different today. But I think, you know, getting a lot of good advice. I remember Fred Manchesky, who was a great mentor to all three of us, and Fred passed not long ago, but just a great entrepreneur, great aftermarket individual. And so he called me in one day and said, I'm gonna let you run Raybestos brakes. And the company had been struggling, and I was in sales and marketing, and we could sell a lot more than we could ship in those days. And so I said to him, you know, Mr. Manchesky, I'm not sure I'm the right person for this job. And he said, I know you're not, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. And that was the kind of commitment. And you know, he was right, and I was right too, because I probably wasn't the right person. But you know, he taught me many things. And I remember the one thing he said to me often, because I would call him up trying to get him to make decisions on my behalf. And he was pretty good at dodging that. But he would say to me, Larry, when you don't know what to do, just do what's right. And I think that's the best advice I could give anybody pretty much about anything. So, excuse me, that'd be my suggestion.
That is truly inspiring. Bill, what other advice would you give to folks? What's necessary for success?
Yeah, I think along similar lines that Larry mentioned, and John also. But you know, when I was a sales guy, I guess I was always thinking not about how much I could sell, but whether we were going to make any money at it. And that kind of differentiated me to, you know, to John's point. What's the math? And I found along the way to try to put myself in my boss's shoes. What is he thinking, or she? What's keeping them up at night? And how many times have we sat back and said, why did they make that decision? And you know, how crazy was that move? So it helped me really have a better understanding and insight kind of what are the key issues that the organization is trying to tackle. And it just, I found it helped ease, you know, some of the frustrations about decisions that were being made, because I've always kind of taken the approach, if it was my decision, what would I do? And for young people in the industry, and really anybody in their career journey, just trying to have that perspective, I think helps go a long, long way.
Well, that's an interesting thing you tee up, Bill. What do you see as a leader? What's changing in the aftermarket industry? What are our key challenges going forward? And how do you see the industry changing as this new generation enters the workforce?
Yeah, thanks for the softball.
Yeah. There's nothing happening.
You many people have heard me say this, you know, in the past 3 or 4 or 5 years, there have been a number of things that the industry has had to face that were not on any of our business plans. And, you know, nobody planned for a pandemic. Nobody planned for a chip shortage. We didn't plan for some of the workforce headwinds that we have. I'll say that the speed and transformation that we're seeing in technology and things. So you know, at Eklund, Fred Manchesky put all of us through this business planning process and strategic planning. And, you know, I can say it now because Fred's not around to catch me. But, you know, he'd send over the forms, we'd fill it out, and we'd send it back and put our strategic plan together. But I think today the thing that's changing, and the thing that is really facing leaders in this industry, is the broad planning for the broad range of possibilities, because there is a lot of uncertainty in our industry. And you know, when we talk about EVs and things, we might argue about what the tipping point is, but we can't argue necessarily that we're headed in that direction. And so how do we begin to think about If all 13, 14, 15 million vehicles next year were all EVs, what would it mean to our business? And it's that kind of thought process that will help us prepare this industry for the future, because we'll be able to be ahead of the curve, and instead of necessarily trying to panic and catch up at the end of the day. Having those skills, I think, to plan for the broad range of possibilities is not easy. And that's why you and I kind of enjoy the jobs that we have, because we get to kind of serve as a think tank and do the deep dive on what the impact of these will be. Not that, our members or other industry players aren't prepared for that, but quite frankly, we have the time and the resources to be able to do that deep dive. So I think, again, the challenges are just the uncertainty and preparing for the range of possibilities.
Well, that's great. And certainly sounds like we need some great future leaders of our industry. So Larry and John, let me throw that softball to you, which is, what trends do you think are shaping the future of the aftermarket? Which one wants to go first?
Well, I'll jump in and let John finish. So what hasn't changed is, people are still important. People still want to be successful. You need great people to be successful on your team. That hasn't changed and probably won't change. I think, today, and we have lots of industry opportunities and issues. As Bill said, we have a transition in the powertrain of the vehicle, which is going to impact us. Not that we haven't had it before, maybe not to this magnitude, but we've seen changes throughout, certainly my career, that were going to be the end of the aftermarket. We were never going to be able to fix these vehicles. We were never going to have parts for them. And so the great entrepreneurial spirit in our business is we always overcome those things, and we will this too, as long as we're utilizing, people the way that they can be utilized. And the one thing that I have a fear of, and I've kind of seen it grow over time, is, we all tend to have strengths and weaknesses. We need to surround ourselves with people that, kind of offset our weaknesses and maybe accentuate our strengths. And too often, I think, is not having people that, are willing to speak up, that are willing to tell you, as Bill said, letting people understand kind of the thought process and what's behind, being available to understand and then question it. And I think that's the thing that, I've tried to always point out to any team that I've been on, is we need to have broad, open dialogue. We need to have people throwing ideas against the wall that maybe don't make sense. Don't make fun of them. We got to make sure we allow people to fail sometimes, because if you play it too safe, if you're afraid to speak up, if you're afraid to take a chance, you're not going to get anywhere. And so as the industry gets to be more challenging, I think we need more of that, not less of it. And in today's environment, I just feel like sometimes that's a bit of a challenge.
Well, that's a great point, and a great endorsement, I think, any younger leaders you're hearing on this call for that mix reverse mentoring model, not just within mix, but within your companies. That's wonderful to hear, Larry, that even a goat wants to hear that challenge and that feedback. So John, you're batting cleanup on this little question.
Larry's right on them. He's right on the money. I mean, we've got to have people speak up. I mean, I know you sit and you look at Bill Long and you sit at Larry, and you might say, well, how could we ever tell you anything? Well, look, we don't know everything. And the way that we learn is we listen. We go to things like, Paul, that excellent OEM seminar that you had on Tuesday. Larry did a great job talking there. It was very informative for me. It was a great conference. I followed up with my executive committee on board immediately afterwards, and they said, what'd you learn? I said, I learned we're going to have a real good fourth quarter. Right, Larry? We're going to have a real good fourth quarter. So it was all good stuff. But Larry's right. It's an exchange of ideas. And one of the things that's, I think, got difficult and made a lot worse since the pandemic, particularly with young people. Everybody that you interview today says, well, I'm not going to move. I'll just do it from where I live. That's what I'll do. I'll just, it's going to be virtual. And I mean, I get it. And we got a number of people that work with us that are virtual, but you know where the real thinking's done? That's, 4 or 5 people that end up in a room together. It's when the president says, I wonder if this works, and he can walk next door to the vice president or somebody else and say, what do you think? So my advice to young people, 2 things. If you want to advance in the corporation and they give you an opportunity to move to headquarters, okay, you can play the I'll just be remote deal. Okay, and you will be just remote for the rest of your career with those people. So if you get the offer to move to headquarters, no matter how crappy it might be, if you want to advance with that company, you probably ought to think about doing that because you got a chance of being noticed and being in the hallways. If you're not going to move, you better work especially hard to make sure you communicate with everybody, you're involved with everything, and you're, to Larry's point, making suggestions. I got an idea. How about this? How about that? Etc. So I think he's right on. As far as looking out of the future, if you'll allow me, I had one story. I got a lot of stories, but I had one that I wanted to tell that really changes everybody's view on what's important here and who's important. For so many years in our business in the aftermarket, what do we say who's important? Person that throws the box away, right? The person that throws the box away. And so we all focus on that person. Well, the story that I have really is the aftermarket, and it's more that throws the box away. And a lot of it's got to do with education. So the story I've got is one that most of us don't get involved with because maybe the only guy on here that's got some skill to fix something is Bill Long. When about 35 years ago, I was back home in Louisville visiting my family. I think it was probably some holiday weekend. And like a lot of us that have family businesses, our fixtures and equipment in our buildings we're proud of. My brother David had just had a complete redo of his heavy duty shop. It was a Saturday afternoon, and let's go down and see it. So my brother Doug, who owns the warehouse, the automotive side, brother David, myself, we slide down. Little Auto Spring, we're closed at noons on Saturdays. It's about 3:30 in the afternoon. We're looking at some new lift equipment that he bought. These lifts for big trucks, it's expensive stuff. And he had some new suspension equipment, looked really cool. And there's a knock, knock, knock on the door. And we go to the front door and look out, and it's a young man and a young lady. And my brother opens the door and says, "What's up?" He says, "Sir, we found you in the yellow pages." Okay. And this is a long time ago. "We found you in the yellow pages. It said you closed at noon. We were hoping you were open. We have a Jeep. We're coming back from our honeymoon, and we broke a leaf spring. And the tire is bouncing on the back of the car. We're trying to get back to Indianapolis. Is there any way you can help us? We know you're closed." My brother Dave looks at Doug and me and says, "Pull it around to door number 4. And I'm like, what are we going to do?" "Well, we're going to fix it." "What?" So the guy brings it into door number 4. I said, "What do you want me to do to help?" David said, "Walk down to the liquor store, get a 12-pack of beer." And off I went. My brother brought the Jeep in. They put it up on the rack real quick. He took off the leaf spring, didn't have the part in stock, had bare leaves, cut a leaf, put it together, center bolt, blah, 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 blah. In about an hour, got this guy and his gal who just got married back together, rolls the thing out. The guy says, "How much do I owe you?" And my brother says, "You don't owe me anything. Congratulations on being married. Good luck, have a nice trip home," except, and the guy says, like, no, please, let me give you something. "No, just take good care of that gal. And remember, the aftermarket's a great place to be." And away he went. And what came together there, if you think about it, it's not about the guy that throws the box away. It's about the point of impact. And the point of impact is when this guy's spring broke. And what do? Well, in those days, they went to the yellow pages. Today, we have a search engine optimization tool, right? And we do a good job having the information in that tool to tell you where to go get your car fixed, what the hours are, maybe even connect with them, make an appointment, and let them know they're coming. Then when you get there, you got to have the facility. You got to have the facility set up and ready to handle this. And then you got to have the part. In this case, if you didn't have the part, can you make the part? And then first and foremost, and more than anything, The education had to be there for that technician, in this case, my brother, to know how to do the job. And that's what the aftermarket's about. It's not just the part. And the education that the University Aftermarket Foundation is trying to make available is all of the education that surrounds that. Whether it be the marketing piece to get the search engine optimization correct, whether it be the IT and the data to make sure the inventory is in the right place, or the training for that technician. And hopefully, in a nice shop, good training for the service advisor that's greeting that customer and taking care of them. So I'd like us all to take away from this, think more, not just about the person that throws the box away. What the hell is happening at the point of impact? And what's your company doing about that to help that consumer love the aftermarket, whether it be automotive or heavy duty?
Well, that's a great point, John. I would throw out, we had a couple of great Northwood recipients of UAF scholarships on there, but remember that over 70% of the scholarships that we give are for techs, people who are
Yes, sir.
repairing the vehicles, doing what you
Absolutely.
just described, and what you just reminded us of we're not just the aftermarket, we're what give mobility and freedom to our country.
Keep America going. I mean, you know, the look on this guy's face and his wife that day, I was so daggone proud of my brother. If it would have been Doug and me on the warehouse side, shit, Larry, we'd still be working on the spring. We probably wouldn't have it off the vehicle yet. But, you know, and it was just nothing to it. And what a great experience for those people. We keep America rolling.
Well said. So we've been getting some good questions coming in. I've asked one of them. Here's another one. We talk a lot about the future. If there's one thing you could bring forward from the past that has been lost as we try to deal with these future challenges, what would that be? Bill, you want to start us with that one?
Wow. Yeah, I can think of one. I started in this industry as a territory factory guy in upstate New York, calling on Napa Auto Parts stores out of the Buffalo and Syracuse distribution center. Before, John, I got the call to move to McHenry, Illinois, and take that head of sales training and tech service job. I think the only reason they picked me is because no one else would move to McHenry except somebody from Syracuse. I'm just saying. But you know, I've seen the power of and effectiveness of back in the days. You know, John and Larry, you both mentioned kind of Monroe and the factory territory sales guys that built the relationships and things with repair technicians all over the country. I think had a profound effect on our business and the relationships and helping those facilities be successful and the training that we brought. Now, I know there are still some companies that have territory representation, and I know the expense has gone through the roof, but when I think about the community of territory guys that became the cream of the crop to move into product management jobs. They knew the product, they knew the customer, they knew what people wanted. I think we need more product managers and good product managers. Not that we don't already have a ton, but picking from that cream of the crop and then having them move through the industry. If there's one thing I could bring from the past to the future, it would be the return of the manufacturers' sales reps, helping customers grow their business right in the field. That'd be one.
I see that's getting applause from the audience.
Yeah, but Billy, the problem is, I mean, I'm with you all the way. That's when there used to be some margin on the supplier side, and that's.
I'm glad to hear the distributors mention.
You know, listen, I'm not going to be. I mean, you know, in 1971, I went to my first Asia show in Chicago. And of course, I was smart enough to get away from the Northwood kids. I'm gonna hang out with the WDs. So I hang around with my dad. I remember go to the Merrimont party at the Palmer House. They had a 30-piece orchestra, magicians, carving roast beef. Rick Black was the, I think, vice president of sales or something. Larry, you might remember him.
Yeah.
And I remember Dad talking to him saying, you know, Mr. Black, how much does a gig like this cost? He said, this thing gonna be $150,000. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. He goes, rounding error for us. That was the day that there was a lot of margin. And so you're right, Bill. We had great field salespeople. I mean, I think of this list of guys that I remember when I was a kid calling on Dad. These people really knew their stuff, man, and could install it and the whole thing. And I think in those days, I mean, help me, Larry, in the early days, it might have been like one sales guy for every $1 million worth of volume.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's exactly
Can't do
right.
that. You can't do that today. I mean, there ain't enough margin on that $1 million. So as we on the distributor side, maybe the bigger distributors have squeezed a lot of margin out of this. You know, John Q. Public is the recipient. The car's getting fixed for a lot cheaper than it should be. And unfortunately, we don't have as many of the good factory reps, boys or girls, calling on us like we used to. But just an economic thing.
I'll jump right into the middle of both of those. So I think some of that, obviously that's true. Margins have gotten shrunken all along the transaction channel. But, you know, if you look at still today, you know, innovation, creativity, companies that learn to differentiate, companies that create value can still make great margins. If you look around our industry, there are champions that outperform everybody, and they do it because they have creativity, innovation, they have great products. John mentioned Rick Black. I'll share a quick story. So part of Merrimont, and Merrimont was a great company, it doesn't exist today, but Rick Black, I know one WD had a flood, and he was the river was coming up. John, you know who I'm talking about. And so he was like, what am I going to do? He called Rick Black from Merrimont and said, hey, the water's going to get into my building tonight. And Rick Black sent like 40 people up there to move the exhaust out to get it out. So the value proposition was more than just mufflers and pipes, right? It was relationships. It was mutual success. But the product differential, I mean, it used to be, and I say used to be, I shouldn't say that, but the aftermarket, if you said as good as OE, somebody would slap you. I mean, OE was like the low point. We made products better than OE. We were proud of that. And we've lost a lot of that innovation, creativity, and to Bill's point, great product people, put them in place that understand the customer, understand the product, listen to them, invest, and you'll get a payback. There's still great margins in this business available to those that do it right.
You're here.
I think that will be our, well, perfect inspiration and our final words of wisdom, Larry. I mean, that call for innovation and all the things that have made our industry great. I really want to give you all a special thank you. Larry, John, Bill, I have been lucky enough to learn tremendous wisdom from each of you over the years, and I really thank you for sharing that with our industry. I know that each of you are truly goats of our industry. And please, everyone, I think, Nikki, you wanted me to pop up and remind everybody the UAF again. So
outside, right? Supposed to keep all the windows closed on the inside. Got it, boss. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Good seeing you. She'll send the bill electronically, right? Thank you.
well, we'll see if we get a bill from John too. But I do want to remind you to support the UAF Coffee Club. Today is National Coffee Day. It's the perfect time to join us. Let's help others have a chance to enter and to grow in our industry. And together, we truly can make a difference for the future. And it only costs as much as that cup of coffee you're drinking. So I do, and then the last thing I did want to remind you of Mix. We've heard it again and again today. We need to have the future people who can be in a call like this, sharing all the great aftermarket successes and growth and the amazing things we do for our countries. And to do that, we need to prepare the next generation of leaders. And as we heard today, we need to listen to the next generation of leaders. So thank you to Mix. And if you're interested, please reach out. But most importantly, Have a great day, a great weekend. And as Larry told us at the end, let's make some money out there in the aftermarket. Thank you.